Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make a cranberry Christmas cake, and this is what it looks like. We start with a chocolate genoise, which we're going to fill with chocolate whipped cream and candied cranberries, and then we're going to cover the whole cake with a stabilized whipped cream. So the first thing we're going to do is make our candied cranberries. So in a stainless steel heat-proof bowl, I have 2 cups, 220 grams of fresh cranberries. Wash your cranberries and then just pick through them and make sure there's no soft ones. And then we're going to make a sugar syrup. So in a small saucepan, I'm going to put 3/4 of a cup, 180 milliliters, grams of just water. And to that, I'm going to add 1 1/4 cups, 250 grams of granulated white sugar. And then I'm just going to put this on medium-high heat, stir it a bit. So what we want is the sugar to melt and to bring it to a boil. Okay, so now it's boiling. So I'm just going to pour it just right over the top of our cranberries. And then I'm going to put, you will need a saucepan and I put about 2 inches of water, 5 centimeters, and just bring that up to a simmer. Because what we're going to do now is we're going to steam our cranberries over simmering water. So what I'm going to do is take a piece of foil and just put it on top of my bowl here. And I'm just going to bring my water up to a simmer. Okay, so my water is at a simmer, so I'm going to turn my heat down and put the bowl of cranberries on top, like so. And what I'm going to do is just let them steam for an hour. I do like to check my water level every once in a while. You don't want that to go, your pot to go dry. If you have to, add a little more water, but just let it steam for an hour. So it has been an hour. So I am going to take it off the heat. I'll show you. So this is what they look like after an hour. So keep them covered. And what you're going to do is you're just going to put this aside in your kitchen and let the cranberries sit in the syrup for 4 days. And that's all you do. You don't have to touch them or anything. And then, so after 4 days, I have some here. This is what you have. Now, we could use them right away, but what I always do is I kind of make these ahead of time. I put it in a container. I put them into the refrigerator, and they can sit there for 2 weeks. So what's great is it's a really good make-ahead part of our cake. So next up, our chocolate genoise. So now for our chocolate genoise, you need to first preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius. And you will need a 9-inch, 23 centimeter cake pan. And I'm going to butter the pan. So what I did is I just melted like a tablespoon of butter, about 15 grams of butter. And then with the pastry brush, just brush the bottom and the sides. You could use one of those non-stick sprays if you want to do that instead, but this adds a little bit of buttery flavor. And then line the bottom of your pan with a piece of parchment paper so it won't stick. And then a chocolate genoise, a type of sponge cake, and but it's not leavened with baking powder, baking soda. It is leavened solely by the air whipped into your egg and sugar mixture. To make a light and airy genoise, what we're going to first do is heat our eggs and sugar over a saucepan of simmering water. So I have 4 large eggs. That's about 210 grams. And to that, I'm going to add 2/3 of a cup, 135 grams of granulated white sugar. And I'm just going to whisk that together. That down and just put that over our saucepan. Now you want to whisk this constantly because we don't want to cook our eggs. What we just want to do is warm them just until they're warm. And what you will find is the sugar melts. And then the reason we do this is then when we go to whip our eggs and sugar mixture, it's going to be so much easier to do it, and it will come to a beautiful full volume. So just whisk, whisk, whisk. Melt that sugar, warm the eggs up, and when you kind of put your finger in there and it's warm to the touch, we're done. Okay, so it's nice and warm to the touch, as you can see what it looks like. Take that off the heat. So now what we are going to do, move that out of the way, is I'm going to take our eggs and sugar, pour it into, if you have an electric stand mixer, you will need the whisk attachment. You could use a hand mixer for this as well. There we go. And then what I'm going to do is beat this on high speed until it gets really thick, pale in color. And that will take, depending on your mixer, probably 3 to maybe 5 minutes. And you're going to find it's going to like triple in volume. So it gets so beautiful. Okay, so there we have it. You can see, oh, isn't that gorgeous? And then another, you can tell by when you raise the whisk, it's going to fall back in a kind of a ribbon. So that's what you're looking for. It's amazing how much volume and thickness you get from an egg and sugar mixture. So now I'm going to add 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of pure vanilla extract. That's simply for flavoring. I'm going to beat that in. Okay. So now that part is done. So to make it easier for you to see what I'm doing, I'm going to transfer this to a big bowl. And actually, I like this better because there's lots of space, because we're going to have to fold in our flour and cocoa powder. And this makes it, a big bowl like this makes it so much easier, although you don't have to wait. You don't have to dirty another bowl at home. So now, and what you will need to do is to melt 3 tablespoons, 42 grams of unsalted butter. And you want to keep that nice and like really quite warm. So I'm going to cover that. And then you will need either a sifter, or I'm just using a strainer. You will need a 1/2 cup, which is 60 grams of cake flour. Cake flour is a low gluten flour, and it gives our genoise a really nice tender crumb. You will need 1/3 cup, 30 grams of unsweetened cocoa powder. You can use the natural unsweetened or the Dutch process, whatever you have in the house or whatever you like. And then 1/4 teaspoon, 1 gram of salt. Now, I'm not going to sift all of this over at once, because then it's too hard to fold it in. We don't want to deflate our mixture there. So I'm just going to do maybe about 1/3 of it. And then you can use a spatula like I'm doing, or you could use a wire whisk, whatever you find easier. And I'm just going to gently fold this in. Big strokes. And cut through. So we want to mix it all together, but we want to try to minimize the amount of that we deflate our sugar and egg mixture. Okay. Make sure you get the bottom of the bowl, and then a little more, another 1/3. It's a bit of a technique here, but you know, if the first one isn't perfect, it's still going, this cake will still be good. Don't worry about it. And the rest. A little here. Sure. Okay, let's scrape. As you can see, using a wide bowl like this does make it a little easier to get those big strokes. Oh, smell that cocoa powder. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Make sure you scrape the side. Cocoa powder tends to stick. And get the bottom. Okay. As you can see, it deflates a little. That's normal. Not much we can do about that. So now we have our melted butter. The reason we melt it and we keep it hot is so that it will easily incorporate into our batter. If we didn't have it warm, it might solidify, and we don't want that. And the butter actually adds a nice flavor and helps with that tender crumb. So what I'm going to do, because that's heavy, this is light, I'm going to take, you know, maybe a cup of my batter, and I'm just going to mix it in, and that'll lighten it, and it will mix in much easier. Okay. And just going to add that and fold it in, and we are done. And you want to make sure that's all folded in so you don't like have greasy, you know, pockets in your genoise. Okay, I'm good with that. Pan, just going to pour that in. So now, everyone's oven is a little different. Just gonna smooth the top there. But I'm going to give you a range of like about, say about 20 minutes. You might want to check it a little before that because, you know, depending on your oven, maybe running a little hot. But what you're looking for, it will rise. If you take your finger and put it into the center, it will spring back. Toothpick inserted into the center, come out clean, and you will just notice that the cake is starting to pull away from the sides of the pan. So those are all the things that you're looking for, but around 20 minutes. Okay, our chocolate genoise is done. Put your cake pan on a wire rack. As you can see, it's starting to pull away from the sides of the pan, risen nicely, springs back, toothpick inserted into the center, comes out clean. So what I'm going to do is just let it cool completely, and when we come back, we will take it out of the pan. So to remove the cake from the pan, take a flat edge, run it on the side just to make sure it's not sticking. And then a rack here, flip it. There we go. And peel off our parchment. And then I'm just going to flip it back over. And there we have it. Now, you can use this genoise right away once it completely cools, or you can wrap it really well. You can refrigerate it for 2 days, or you can even freeze it for about a month. So next up, our chocolate whipped cream. Just before we start making our chocolate whipped cream, first thing we need to do, you need a large bowl with a strainer, and we're going to drain those candied cranberries. Let's do that. And once they drain, you will need to take 1/3 cup, which is 80 milliliters, 80 grams of the drained cranberry syrup, which I've already measured out. And to that, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons, 25 grams of like a cherry brandy. I think you could even use like a Grand Marnier. We're going to soak our chocolate genoise with this. Let's mix that together. Now, if you don't want to use alcohol, what you could simply do is just use 2 more tablespoons, 25 grams of your drained cherry syrup. Simple enough. So now for our cake, you take, what I like to do is use one of these cardboard cake circles. I find it easier to lift my cake and work with it. And you can just get them at like cake decorating stores or even online like Amazon. And so what I'm going to do is just slip that on. Now you will need a 9-inch cake circle. So put on there. And then if you have a turntable, you don't need a turntable. You could just put it on your cake pedestal if you have that. Now I put a little tape because I find this moves around a lot and drives me crazy. So there, so what I want to do, typically when you make a genoise, any type of cake, your oven has hot spots. So if I look, I'm not perfectly level. So what you can do is take your knife and just run it and remove that part until you get a level cake. And you get to have a little treat and eat that. So there. And now what we want to do is divide this in half horizontally. Large knife. I'm just using a straight edge. You could use a serrated knife. And so what I do is go about halfway down and start. And just move my around, just cutting in a little all the way around. And then when I meet up, I just kind of keep moving it around, and then it'll go right through till I go right through like that. And there we have it. So what I want to do, I'm going to take this off my cake because I want to use the top of my cake and flip that over, so that the bottom of the cake will be the top and it'll be nice and flat. So there we have it. Let's press that down. So that is, we got that done. So now what we're going to do, I'm just going to turn, we need a saucepan of simmering water. We are going to start our chocolate whipped cream filling. So in a heat-proof bowl, let me move that out of the way. In a heat-proof bowl, I use stainless steel, you will need 5 ounces, which is 150 grams of a semi-sweet chocolate or a bittersweet chocolate. You want to use a chocolate that you like just eating on its own. And then I've used these little wafers, but if you're using like a chocolate bar or something, just coarsely chop it. Simmering water, I'm just going to put that over there and I'm just going to melt it. Okay, so our chocolate is melted. I'm going to remove it from the heat. And then I'm just going to let it cool just a little. You want it like just around a little warmer than room temperature. And when I come back, we will whip our cream. So now we're going to whip our cream. If you have a stand mixer, use your whisk attachment. You could use a hand mixer or even just a wire whisk. You will need 3/4 of a cup, that's 180 milliliters or grams of cold, heavy whipping cream. That's cream with about 35 to 40% butterfat content, which means when you whip it, it will hold stiff peaks. So now I'm going to beat this on high speed till we just get like soft peaks. Watch it carefully, you don't want to overmix it. Okay, now by chance, if you did over whip this, which happens, just add a little more cold, heavy cream and whip it just a little more, because it happens to the best of us. So you can see, just that's what you're looking for. So now what we want to do is add our whipping cream to our chocolate. And we want to do this so we don't seize it. Sometimes if you don't have it the right temperature or do it fast enough, you can get little pieces of chocolate in your cream. I mean, it still tastes good, but aesthetically or even the mouthfeel isn't quite as nice. So what I do is I use a wire whisk and I just take a little bit of cream. Let's see if I can get that. And whisking really quickly. lighten it and then add a little more. And then add the rest. I'm going to switch over to my spatula now that I've lightened it enough. Make sure I get all the chocolate on the bottom mixed in. Okay, and that's how you make chocolate whipped cream. Some people say this is like a quick chocolate mousse that you could just put in glasses and serve. So now, I am going to pipe my chocolate whipped cream onto my genoise. So I have a pastry bag, piping bag, fitted with a 1/2 inch, which is about 1.5 centimeter, plain, just a plain tip. I think it's a Wilton 1A. And just fold back that. Put all my cream. Now you don't have to pipe it if you kind of like, I'm not comfortable with that. You can, when I get to that point, you can just spread the cream on the cake. But we'll do it like the professionals do it. Okay, looks good. Whoop. And I'm just going to put that right in there for a sec. Now, back to a little bit of a process here. So we have our genoise. Now, genoise, like any type of sponge, can be a little dry, and that is why you use a soaking syrup. So have a pastry brush, and then we're going to brush our layer with some of the syrup. How much? I would say, about a couple tablespoons. And just kind of dot it. You can kind of see how much liquid your genoise will absorb. If you maybe overbaked it a bit, you might need a little more soaking syrup than if you didn't. That's a great part of this type of cake. With this soaking syrup, it makes it a little more forgiving on your baking. That's not a bad thing. Okay, so that looks good. The added advantage to this is, your assembled cake will last a little longer in the fridge. Keep it nice and moist. So now what we're going to do is set down. We're going to make, I'm just going to make concentric circles around. Try to keep them as close together as you can. Now, if you don't want to pipe, like I said, just spread it with you can use a spatula. As you can see, your piping skills do not have to be perfect for this. And then just fill in if you have a little gaps with all the. Okay, simple enough. And then we have our drained cranberries, nice and soft. And so what I'm going to do is just evenly spread them over the top. I think you could make this cake other times of the year. You could make it like a Black Forest cake and use the cherries. I think you could use fresh raspberries. I think would be very nice for this. So, if you live somewhere where you just can't get cranberries, don't worry. You can improvise. Okay, so that looks good. So now we'll want to brush this layer again with the soaking syrup, a couple tablespoons. Yeah, that looks good. Then that, and gently put it over the top. And we're going to take the rest of the syrup and put it on the top here. So this genoise is going to be genoise is going to be nice and moist and flavorful because you know, the syrup also flavors it. A nice cranberry flavor. Good. So now, just going to make sure I press that down and make sure I line that up. And then, hands are chocolatey. I am going to, it's kind of messy on the side here, I'm going to take a straight edge. You could just take like a spatula or even a knife. And I'm going to use my cake circle as a guide and just go around and get a nice smooth edge to my the filling. And kind of like that. And then what I'm going to do is put this into the refrigerator to chill, you know, at least 15 minutes. Probably half an hour. I mean, you could do several hours or even overnight if you wanted to space this out. But that way, it's going to be much easier for us to cover our genoise with our whipped cream. And that's what we're going to do when we come back. So now we're going to make our stabilized whipped cream frosting. And the reason we're going to stabilize it with gelatin is so that it's easier to pipe and our cake will hold longer at room temperature. So in a small bowl there, you will need 1/4 cup, which is 60 milliliters, 60 grams of cold water. And then you will need one of these little 1/4 ounce, 7 grams of unflavored gelatin, and that's about a scant tablespoon. They usually come in these little pouches, 4 to a little box, just on the baking aisle. And then sprinkle your powdered gelatin over the top. You can see it's little tiny grains, and what we want to do is let it sit in the cold water, usually about 5-10 minutes. And what happens is those little grains will absorb that cold water and it'll get really soft and spongy. And at the same time, what we need to do is to take 1/3 cup, which is 80 milliliters, 80 grams of that, some more of that cranberry syrup. And what we're going to do is we're going to just put that in a small saucepan and we need to warm it up. Just a hot. So over medium heat. So now our gelatin's got nice and soft and spongy. It's absorbed the water and our cherry syrup is hot. So I'm going to take the gelatin, add it to the hot liquid, and then I'm just going to have it on low heat because I want now for that gelatin to dissolve into the cherry syrup. To whip our cream, if you have a stand mixer, use your whisk attachment, or you could use a hand mixer, or even you could do it by hand with a wire whisk. You will need 2 cups, 480 milliliters, 480 grams of cold heavy cream, or heavy whipping cream. And then I'm going to flavor that with 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of pure vanilla extract. And to sweeten it a little, 1/4 cup, 30 grams of confectioner sugar. You may know that as powdered or icing sugar. And if you want it a little sweeter, you could add more powdered sugar, or conversely, if you don't like your cream too sweet, you could use less. I'll leave that up to you. So what we're going to do is beat this on high speed until just soft peaks. We don't want firm, we want soft peaks. Watch it carefully. Okay, so we just wanted to beat this to soft peaks, kind of like that. And then what I'm going to do is have the mixer on low speed and slowly add my, it's kind of cooled down to room temperature, my cranberry syrup. And then I'm going to continue to beat it until we get like medium peaks. Okay, that's looking good. There we go. Okay. So that, I mean, pretty easy. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go get my cake out of the fridge, and then we are going to cover it with what is called a crumb coat, like a really thin layer of the frosting to kind of seal in all those crumbs. Be right back. So now I got my cake. Whenever you're transferring your cake from, say, one place to another, your turntable to your serving plate, I like to have one of these large spatulas. And having that cake circle really helps, so you can just lift. And there we go. And now I just have a piping bag fitted again with a plain tip. And I'm going to put some of my cream in here. Later, I'll use a different tip so we can decorate the top. But for now, put some. Now, if you don't want to do piping and you don't care about having that like more what professionals or what that type of cake, then you could just take your frosting, spread it on there with the spatula, and you're done, and it looks great too. So what I've done is I'm just going to put, because like I said, we're going to do a crumb coat. Just a thin layer of frosting, then we're going to chill the cake for 10 minutes, and then we'll do the final coat. And this will seal in any crumbs from the genoise, and that's how you get like, because sometimes if you just do one coat, you can get kind of the crumbs from the cake in the frosting. Doesn't look that great. So now, just kind of with a got a flat spatula here. Just, as you can see, if you have one of these turntables, might be something to invest in. It makes life easier. Okay, and let's do the sides. You don't have to be too fussy on this one because we are going to cover it with another layer of frosting, so don't worry too much. And then take your spatula and have it straight at an angle in the center and just spin it around, kind of get a flat surface. Like I said, it's not critical at this point. And the sides. I like to use my flat edge for this. Again, have your, at the edge of your cake circle, and just straight up and down, and just spin it around and get a nice, take off any excess, because like I said, we just want a really thin coat here. That's good. And then to get those, because we have kind of a lot of frosting here on the edges, you just take and just kind of come down, kind of like you're landing a plane, right across, like that. Just go around the, and then after I've finished this, I'm going to put this back into the refrigerator, only about 10 minutes, just to firm that up, and when we come back, we will do our final coat. So now you will need a piping bag fitted with a star tip. That's a number 827 Attico. And just want to put some cream in there. Push it down. You want to get all the air out. So this is our final coat. So again, and just, and along the sides. Okay. And with our spatula, we're gonna... Now the top, it doesn't matter too much because after we do this, we're going to pipe rosebuds, or you could do rosettes or whatever you want on the top. So you don't have to fuss too much with the top surface. And then we're gonna... Nice, pretty thick coating on the sides. Make sure you get it right down to the bottom. Okay, and now again with our flat edge. If you don't have one of these, you might want to get, they're really handy tools for this. So again, you want to make sure it's straight, and I'm just going to, with the bottom of that cake circle, and then just go around, and you know, it depends. If you want straight sides, you don't have to do this. If you would prefer like like a ruffle or something, whichever way, you know, you want. And just go around and fuss as much as you want to get that. Okay, that's pretty good. And then take the top, and again, we're gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna fuss too much with this because we're gonna pipe some rosettes or some rosebuds today. So, and then I'm just gonna get the edges of our cake nice, crisp edges. Okay, so now I'm just gonna take my straight edge, clean up my turntable a little, just kind of, you see that? Okay, and we are going to take the rest of our cream, and I'm gonna pipe. Like I said, you could do rosettes. I mean, really, you can do whatever you want. And the last one. Now, to me, this is beautiful looking just as it is. And actually, I like it white for Christmas, kind of snowy looking, little peaks. So I think I'm actually liking it better white. So now, if you want, you can, I think it's nice just like it is. If you want to put chocolate on the sides, that's kind of nice because then it kind of tells people, if you just look at the cake, oh, if there's chocolate on the outside, that probably means it's chocolate on the inside. So I just use my spatula. This is kind of a little tricky. So that's why you need that cake circle. I'm going to hold my cake and then kind of tilt it. So, I mean, if you're not comfortable with this, really just leave it off. And then I'm just going to go and take some grated chocolate, and with my hand, I just have some parchment paper there, just kind of go around and press it in. Carefully. And when you've finished that, what we need to do is to chill it. Now, I like to chill this overnight because I find it takes like overnight for that gelatin to really finish activating and firm up that whipped cream. Now, if you have some kind of with a dome serving plate that has a dome, that's great. I like to put it in first without covering. But really, the one trick I learned is if you have a cake box, just take a cardboard cake box. This is a great way to store your cake. Plus, you can transport it easily. You just now gently take that giant spatula, take your cake, put it into your cake box. And then close it up and wrap the whole box in plastic wrap. Put it in your fridge, and it's a great way to store it, keeps it nice and fresh, or to transport it if you're going to take it somewhere. So what I'm going to do is let this chill overnight, and then when we come back tomorrow, I'm going to cut a slice. So now we're ready to cut our cake. I did let it chill overnight in the refrigerator, and I think it looks just beautiful as it is, but we can decorate it with some fresh cranberries. Again, wash them, pick through them, get rid of any soft ones, and then just decorate the top. Put as many or as few as you want. I think this is nice because then people know this is a cranberry dessert just by looking at it. So when you're cutting it, sharp knife. As you can see, I don't know whether you can see, but the cream has really firmed up, and that's the advantage of, stabilizing our whipped cream. So just cut through, whoop. And then I like to just wipe my knife, otherwise you get the chocolate and the frosting. We don't want that. Now, I do like to serve this at room temperature. So, like normally, I take it out maybe a half hour before I'm going to cut it. And that way, especially the cake gets a little softer and the chocolate cream. So, there we have it. Whoop. Isn't that gorgeous? Whipped cream, and then you've got the chocolate genoise, the chocolate filling, the candied cranberries. A very impressive looking dessert. Your guests, your family will love it. So I'm just going to take a bit of everything. When you make this type of cake, it is, let's face it, it's quite a bit of work. You can space it out, but really, when you layer so many components, you get such a nice tasting cake. You've got the chocolate genoise which you really can, it's nice and moist, and a little bit of, you can taste that cranberry syrup, and then you got the chocolate mousse, and then the candied cranberries, and of course, lots of whipped cream on top. A really great dessert. It will impress. People will not believe that you actually made it. So try this one. And until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joyofbaking.com.